My entitled millionaire fiancée stole my $4 million smart house design and dumped me for my worst enemy. She thought she had won. She didn't know I still controlled the structural master codes. During their housewarming party, I activated them. Absolute chaos followed. My name is Ethan, and I am a 31-year-old architectural engineer and smart home automation specialist. 5 years ago, I opened my own boutique firm in Austin, Texas. I design high-end, futuristic luxury homes where everything, from the security glass to the hidden plumbing valves, is controlled by a central digital server framework. 3 years ago, I started dating Victoria. Victoria came from old real estate money. Her father, Richard, owned a massive commercial development company, and her entire family was deeply embedded in the high society elite. Victoria was beautiful, sharp, and incredibly manipulative, though I was too blinded by love to see it at the time. When Richard found out about my business, his eyes lit up. He told me, "Ethan, my daughter deserves the most advanced luxury estate in the state. If you design and build our new family mansion using your automation systems, I will introduce your firm to every billionaire developer in Texas. This will put your company on the map." I was thrilled. I thought my future father-in-law was helping me grow my dream career. I spent 14 months working 16-hour days, drafting the blueprints, coordinating the construction crews, and personally coding the entire automated server architecture for a massive 10,000 square foot smart mansion. The house was a technical masterpiece. It featured automated military-grade security shutters, digital climate zones, high-end surround sound integrated into the walls, and a custom water filtration network controlled entirely by a private localized server matrix hidden inside the basement. Because Richard was family, I foolishly allowed the construction to proceed under a good-faith initial contract. I paid the subcontractors, the premium materials, and the custom automation servers out of my own company's business accounts, totaling over $300,000 of my own capital, expecting the final wire transfer upon completion. 2 weeks ago, the mansion was finally 100% complete. It was a flawless diamond of modern technology. I sent the final invoice of $4 million for the full design, structural development, and automation licensing to Richard's corporate office. I didn't receive a reply for 3 days. On the 4th day, Victoria called me and asked me to meet her at the mansion. I arrived, expecting a romantic celebration. Instead, when I walked through the grand glass entrance, I found Victoria standing there with her father, Richard, and a man I recognized instantly, Brad, a wealthy, arrogant trust fund billionaire and my biggest business rival. Brad was smiling smugly, holding a glass of wine. Victoria looked at me with an icy, detached expression. She took off her engagement ring, dropped it onto a nearby marble countertop, and said, "Ethan, the wedding is off. Brad and I have been together for 6 months, and he is moving into this house with me." I stood there completely paralyzed, trying to process the sheer scale of the betrayal. I looked at Richard and said, "Are you insane? I built this entire house. Where's the payment for my firm's invoice?" Richard let out a cold laugh, puffing his expensive cigar. Richard stepped forward and said, "Ethan, don't be naive. My legal team reviewed the initial paperwork you signed. Because you built this structure on land owned by my corporate LLC, the property and everything inside it legally belongs to us. We are disputing your invoice due to fake structural delays. You won't receive a single dime." Brad laughed, putting his arm around Victoria's waist. "Thanks for the free labor, nerd," he sneered. "Your automated systems are amazing. Victoria and I are throwing a massive housewarming party this Friday for 50 of the richest families in Austin to celebrate our new engagement. You can leave now." 2 armed private security guards stepped out from the hallway, indicating that if I didn't leave immediately, they would use force. I felt a wave of blinding fury, but I forced my facial expression to remain perfectly blank. I turned around, walked out of the mansion, and got into my truck. As I drove back to my office, my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. They thought they had executed the perfect corporate heist. They thought they used a naive engineer to get a multi-million-dollar automated fortress for free. What they didn't understand was the fundamental rule of modern software engineering. The physical house belonged to their LLC, yes, but the proprietary software core, the localized server automation scripts, and the network command protocols that allowed the house to function were completely owned by my private technology company, and protected by international copyright and encryption laws. They thought that because they changed the Wi-Fi passwords and kicked me off the basic user app, they had total control. They had no idea that during the deep server installation inside the basement, I had hard-coded and encrypted hidden digital backdoor into the kernel level of the operating system. I spent the entire Wednesday and Thursday night inside my office, coding a highly specific automation script. I labeled the file Project High Society Karma. I integrated the house's calendar data feed, tracking the Friday night schedule. The party was set to begin at 7 p.m. Friday evening arrived. I sat in front of my 3-monitor developer setup, a cup of black coffee in my hand, watching the public social media stories of Austin's elite. Victoria's wealthy friends were already posting videos from inside the mansion, showing off the automated features, the marble bars, and the luxury lighting. At 7:30 p.m., the mansion was packed. 50 of the most influential political figures, real estate billionaires, and corporate investors in Texas were standing in the grand ballroom, drinking champagne and listening to Brad brag about how he coordinated the tech infrastructure of the house himself. I looked at my monitors. My remote terminal was connected directly to the mansion's main hidden server via my encrypted backdoor tunnel. The connection signal was green. The system diagnostic data showed that the house was operating flawlessly. I smiled, raised my coffee cup, and hit the execute button. The script immediately initiated Phase 1, Lockdown. Instantly, the server sent a high-priority emergency command to the automated military-grade exterior steel security shutters. With a heavy mechanical roar, the thick steel shutters slammed down across every single window and glass exit door in the mansion. The 80 guests inside gasped as the natural twilight views of Austin were instantly replaced by solid steel walls. The main digital glass entry doors engaged their industrial electronic deadbolts. The house was entirely sealed from the outside world. Nobody could get out, and nobody could get in. Before the guests could even panic, Phase 2 launched, System Anarchy. The custom ambient lighting array, which was set to a romantic, warm golden hue, instantly flashed into a blinding, hyper-pulsing neon red and green party strobe. The integrated high-end wall speakers didn't just turn off, they triggered a preloaded audio loop. The luxury sound system began blasting an incredibly loud, distorted clown circus music theme at maximum volume throughout the entire 10,000-square-foot estate. The bass was vibrating the expensive marble floors, making it impossible for anyone to hear themselves speak. The elegant high society gathering transformed into a chaotic circus nightmare. Through my remote developer terminal, I could track the smart lock status logs. People were throwing their bodies against the reinforced safety doors, but the military deadbolts didn't budge. Brad and Richard were frantically tapping on their user iPads, but their screens were completely frozen, displaying a giant digital clown emoji. Then came Phase 3, Environmental Inundation. My script overrode the automated digital water filtration network and the electronic bathroom plumbing manifolds. The system opened every single electronic flush valve and faucet in the upper floor luxury bathrooms, while simultaneously disabling the main drainage return pumps. Within 10 minutes, premium purified water began overflowing from the designer porcelain sinks and high-end toilets on the second floor, cascading down the grand marble staircase directly into the ballroom where the wealthy elite were trapped. The water was soaking their expensive designer dresses and Italian leather shoes. My phone began vibrating violently on my desk. It was Victoria. I pushed the speaker button, taking a calm sip of my coffee. Victoria was completely hysterical, screaming over the deafening clown music blasting in her background. "Ethan! Ethan, you psycho! Are you doing this? Turn it off! People are screaming! The house is flooding!" I answered in a calm, analytical tone. "I don't know what you are talking about, Victoria. According to your father, Richard, I have nothing to do with that property. You said my systems were flawed and full of structural delays. I guess you are just experiencing a minor software glitch. Enjoy the party." Richard then grabbed the phone, his voice shaking with absolute panic and rage. "Ethan, listen to me, you petty bastard. There are city council members and major tech investors trapped in here. If this water ruins the structure, I will sue you for millions. Open the security shutters right now." I let out a soft laugh. "Sue me with what contract, Richard? You told me our initial agreement was invalid because the land belongs to your LLC. Since I don't officially work for you, I have zero legal obligation to fix your glitch. Oh, by the way, the server backup power is hardwired. It will run for 48 hours straight." Richard gasped, completely understanding the terrifying reality of his situation. He was trapped inside a high-tech prison of his own greed. Then, Brad's voice came through the line, sounding completely broken. "Ethan, please, man. My entire reputation is on the line. The investors think I built this broken system. What do you want?" I smiled, leaning back in my office chair. "I want my architectural firm's invoice paid in full, Brad. $4 million, plus a $50,000 emergency software consulting fee for my time tonight. Until that money clears in my corporate bank account, the clown music stays on." Brad yelled, "$4 million? That's extortion! We will call the fire department to cut through the steel shutters with saws." I replied, "Go ahead, Brad. The security shutters are layered with reinforced titanium alloy. It will take the fire department at least 3 hours to cut through one window, and by that time, your $4 million interior will be completely underwater." The line went silent, except for the muffled sound of weeping in the background. My screen terminal showed that the water depth in the main ballroom had reached 2 inches. The elite of Austin were standing on top of the expensive designer velvet sofas, screaming as the neon lights continued to flash strobe patterns. Through the phone speaker, I could hear Brad screaming over the blaring clown music. "Are you insane, Ethan? I don't have $4 million just sitting in my personal checking account at 8 p.m. on a Friday night. The banks are closed. You have to open these doors." I leaned back in my leather chair, completely relaxed. "Nice try, Brad, but I know exactly who you are. You are a corporate trustee. Your firm uses automated high-frequency wire portals. You can execute a federal wire transfer from your phone in 30 seconds. You have exactly 5 minutes before the water reaches the main electrical outlets." Richard's voice cut in, trembling with terror. "Brad, do it. Pay him. My investments are tied up in this structure. If the main subflooring warps from the flood, the structural damage will exceed $5 million. Pay the nerd right now." I kept my eyes on my monitor, watching the server telemetry logs. The water level in the grand ballroom was rising steadily. On public social media, someone had managed to upload a frantic, shaky 5-second video to TikTok using cellular data. The caption read, "Trapped inside a billionaire's psycho smart house." 4 minutes passed in absolute silence on my end, filled only with the muffled sounds of chaos from their side. Then, a sharp, distinctive chime echoed from my laptop. It was a secure notification from my corporate bank account. A wire transfer had just cleared. I refreshed the banking window. There it was, $4,050,000, fully cleared and settled into my Asset Protection Trust account. The payment reference line read, "Technical Consulting Services." They had legally authenticated the payment themselves. Brad panted into the phone. "The money is sent, Ethan. It's out of my account. Turn it off. Let us out." I checked the balance one more time to ensure the wire was completely non-reversible. I smiled softly, feeling an immense sense of vindication. I spoke into the microphone. "Thank you for your business, gentlemen. Initiating Phase 4, Evacuation." I tapped a sequence of keys on my developer terminal. Instantly, the server sent the cancellation command to the automated plumbing valves, shutting off the water flow. Simultaneously, the main drainage backup pumps activated at 200% capacity. The distorted clown music cut out, replaced by absolute, ringing silence inside the mansion. Then, with a loud mechanical click, the massive titanium security shutters began slowly rolling back up. The heavy digital glass entry doors unlocked and slid open. Just as the doors opened, the flashing red strobe lights switched back to a crisp, bright, revealing white illumination. The entire scene of absolute destruction was now fully visible to everyone. The timing was absolutely perfect. Outside the mansion, 3 local fire trucks, 4 police cruisers, and an emergency medical vehicle had just pulled up to the driveway with their sirens blaring. Victoria's mother had managed to call 911 during the lockdown, claiming they were under a terrorist attack. As the shutters lifted, the first thing the police officers saw was 50 of Austin's wealthiest elites, soaked from the knees down, climbing over expensive velvet sofas like wet rats. Women were holding their ruined designer high heels, and corporate investors were screaming at Brad. Victoria was standing near the grand staircase, her expensive silk dress completely ruined and clinging to her body, crying hysterically. Brad was pale, shaking, and holding his phone like a weapon. The police officers rushed inside with their weapons drawn, completely confused by the scene. The lead police sergeant looked at the water draining from the luxury marble floors and yelled, "Where is the threat? Who attacked this property?" Richard ran up to the officers, pointing his shaking finger into the air. "It was my daughter's ex-fiancé, Ethan. He hacked our house. Arrest him!" The police sergeant looked at Richard, then looked at the server room status layout. "Sir, did he break into the physical property?" Richard screamed. "No, he did it remotely. He built the system." The sergeant frowned. "Sir, if he built the system and you haven't completed the legal transfer, this is a civil contract dispute, not a criminal attack." I hung up the phone line, closed my laptop, and went home to get the first good night of sleep I had experienced in 6 months. I knew that my legal and financial protections were completely ironclad. The next morning, the real aftermath of that housewarming disaster began to unfold. The tech investors who were trapped inside that flooding mansion were the exact people Brad was trying to pitch for his new venture fund. After spending an hour locked inside an automated prison listening to distorted clown music, they completely pulled out of all business negotiations with him. One major tech billionaire explicitly posted on his public Twitter account, "I will never invest a single dollar with a developer who can't even secure his own housewarming party from a basic software override. Brad is a liability." Brad's reputation in the Austin tech scene was completely vaporized. But the financial damage to Richard's commercial real estate company was even worse. The premium purified water had leaked through the custom subflooring of the second floor, destroying the high-end Italian drywall, ruining the integrated surround sound wiring, and causing severe mold potential inside the structural foundation. The total cost to repair the structural water damage inside the smart mansion was estimated at $650,000. Because Richard had explicitly stated to the police that the incident was caused by a software dispute with the builder, his luxury property insurance company denied his claim entirely. The insurance company's legal letter read, "Property damage resulting from unfinalized commercial contractor disputes and deliberate software withholding is not covered under your premium policy liability." Richard had to pay the entire $650,000 out of his own pocket. Brad, furious that his reputation was ruined and that he had been forced to transfer $4 million of his firm's capital to my account, blamed Victoria and her father. He claimed that Richard's bad legal advice had walked him directly into a trap. Within 2 weeks, Brad dumped Victoria completely. He kicked her out of his penthouse, canceled her access to his high-end corporate credit cards, and blocked her number. Victoria went from planning a high society wedding with a trust fund billionaire to being completely abandoned, living back in her parents' guest house and facing massive social blacklisting. Richard tried to hire a high-profile corporate litigation law firm to sue my boutique company for extortion. But when his lawyers reviewed the system logs and the payment data, they told him he had zero legal standing. The $4 million he paid me was the exact amount of the original completed invoice. My contract explicitly stated that the automation software license core remained the intellectual property of my firm until the invoice was settled. Legally, I hadn't hacked them. I had simply managed my own proprietary software asset due to non-payment. The $50,000 fee was logged as an emergency call-out invoice. Richard's lead attorney told him, "Sir, if you take Ethan to court, the entire story of how you tried to scam an architectural engineer out of his completed work will become public record. It will completely ruin your commercial real estate company's stock value. Drop the case." Richard had no choice but to back down. With the $4,050,000 sitting securely in my corporate accounts, I officially cut all ties with the Texas real estate elite. I didn't need their corrupt introductions anymore. I used the capital to completely clear my firm's debts, buy a beautiful custom office building downtown, and hire top-tier engineering talent. My boutique firm's brand actually skyrocketed after the incident. Inside the private technology circles of Austin, the story of the quiet engineer who locked 50 millionaires inside a smart house and forced a trust fund billionaire to wire $4 million in 5 minutes became an absolute legend. High-end, legitimate technology clients started contacting me, wanting my specific automated software core for their high-security private compounds. They realized that if my operating system could defend itself against corrupt millionaire developers, it could protect their private data assets from anything. 6 months after the housewarming disaster, I was driving my new luxury truck past a high-end country club where Victoria's family used to hold their charity events. I saw Victoria sitting on the exterior patio alone, drinking a glass of cheap house wine, staring blankly at her phone. She looked visibly older, stressed, and completely isolated. Her elite friend circle had entirely abandoned her. In high society, nothing spreads faster than the stench of financial embarrassment and public ridicule. She had tried to leverage my hard work to secure a billionaire lifestyle with my rival, and she ended up losing both the billionaire and the mansion. I didn't honk my horn, I didn't slow down, and I didn't smile. I felt absolute indifference. She was just an outdated software artifact, an old error log that had been permanently overwritten by a superior lifestyle. I pressed the accelerator, listening to a high-end tech podcast, and drove toward my firm's new headquarters. Richard's development company faced a massive internal audit from his corporate backers shortly after the incident. The investors discovered that he had been systematically inflating construction material costs and falsifying completion data on multiple municipal projects to cover his personal real estate debts. The board of directors officially stripped him of his CEO status, forcing him into early retirement and removing his voting shares. The man who thought he could use his corporate legal team to steal a working-class engineer's architectural property ended up completely ousted from the very empire he spent 30 years building. This entire intense experience taught me the ultimate rule of the modern economy. Never assume that a quiet, analytical professional is weak. People who build things with their own hands, people who understand system logistics, coding infrastructure, and technical design hold the real operational leverage. Entitled elites like Victoria and her father think that because they have a corporate LLC name and old real estate money, they can simply overwrite reality. They think compliance is a weakness they can exploit, but they forget that digital infrastructure requires constant authority verification, and I own the root access. By staying completely calm when they threatened me, by forcing them to explicitly state their lack of contract obligations before their elite guests, I allowed them to walk directly into a trap where they had zero legal options. They signed their own financial execution under high-definition security strobe lights. Today, my company is thriving, and I'm surrounded by genuine hard-working professionals who respect contract logistics and creative intellectual property. I also met an incredible woman named Maya, who is a senior database architect at a prominent aerospace firm. She understands my world, values my character, and built her own career through actual skill. To any independent engineer, contractor, or creative specialist out there who is currently being scammed or threatened by a wealthy, entitled client, do not back down and do not lose your temper. Protect your source code. Retain your digital backdoor keys. Let them think they won until the exact moment you execute the master command. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this crazy story, please smash that like button, leave a comment below with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more daily Reddit drama. See you in the next video.